Hello and welcome to Spitfire. This is episode 58. My name is Brice. I'll be bringing you through the topics as we walk our way through Call of Duty Esports. Joining me, of course, Clayster Hastr0 will be doing production and chiming in when he feels like it. But more importantly, our guests for this week, joining us from the franchise team Dallas Empire. First of all, let's start with Clay, world champion. How are you?
Doing well, man. How you doing? And thanks for having me on as well.
No problem. Thanks for coming. And of course, owner of the franchise and a legend in the Call of Duty scene, Hastr0. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Little sleepy this morning, but we're okay.
Sounds good. All right. Let's go straight into the topics then, because lots to cover. Because I want to talk about a lot of things. First of all, CDL Atlanta just happened. Another big event on the homestand events coming through. Obviously, Dallas, you were not in attendance this time around. But Clay, what do you think? Kind of sitting on the outside of a big event, you tweeted about it. You said, it's very weird for me to be watching an event from home.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first event that I haven't actually competed at. I've gotten knocked out of some tournaments and been able to watch the Saturday and Sunday and stuff, but I've never had the opportunity in a long time to sit down and watch some of the best teams in the world all play each other and not have to worry about competing myself. So it's definitely a weird feeling just in general not being there. But it was also a really good opportunity for a learning experience, being able to sit with your team and watch all the matches and kind of just watch everything together and not have to worry about anything, just kind of sit down, relax, watch matches. It helps a lot. It goes a long way being able to get everybody together to do something like that. So although it felt weird, I think it was actually beneficial that we weren't there, because it allowed us to kind of see what everybody else does and be like, oh, this works, and take all the good things from each team.
Was there a big Dallas watch party then? Teammates and coaches and staff sitting around?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was big, but the whole team was here. We have a space in the Empire facilities and huge couch, huge TV and stuff. So we were all just in here for pretty much all day Sunday, just watching it all together. So we definitely made sure to make the most of the time we had, quote unquote, off.
That's fair enough. I think that's fair enough. Hastr0, but it's slightly different for you as well now, because obviously you've got to throw a homestand. It's coming just down the road. Do you kind of watch these events and see what you can kind of go, wow, we can improve a little bit here. We can do this with our atmosphere and get ready for yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I always watch the games. I always have. I'm there for the games first and foremost. I don't know. I'm probably one of the few owners in the league, that we'll sit there and watch every game and break down the actual matches themselves and think about them and by any intel or things that I saw. But I also these days am definitely taking a look at how does the broadcast look, how are the casters carrying themselves, what's making this entertaining, what's not making it entertaining, what are we missing, what does the venue look like on broadcasts, what does the crowd sound like, all those things. I'm taking into account so I can give the best damn experience I can to the Call of Duty fans in Dallas.
You haven't had to worry about listening to us this season, at least, Mike.
I miss you guys.
It's interesting because obviously, Hastr0, you came from a player into you were a caster, you're an org owner. You've done basically almost everything you can do, the front facing stuff of Call of Duty. And I honestly think a lot of people forget that sometimes. The fact that you've come up and you've done these things, and there's a lot of depth to your background in COD that people don't always give credit for. Because right now there are people in here who have no idea that you used to cast, they have no idea that you used to play. The new generation of people, right, have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Call of Duty Esports didn't exist from 2006 to 2012. It just didn't exist.
Me and Mike have talked about it. We the fact that we used to compete against each other, 12, 11 years ago.
Listen to this shit. 10 years ago, probably somewhere around today, I was playing Clayster, and Prof on Karachi CTF in Modern Warfare 2. And Clayster sat on the turret next to the flag the entire game after they got a lead. They literally capped the flag on us in the first 30 seconds, and the dude sat on this turret camping his flag for 9 minutes straight.
It's gotta be done. It's gotta be
done.
We won.
That's how old we are, man. That was a decade ago, dude.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was doing that yesterday, and after the match, Like, dude, you know, it was like a GP match where they had turrets enabled or something. We were playing it for some kind of points or something. I don't know. Who knows why we accepted that match? But yeah, it was brutal. But yeah, that's how old we are playing COD, and it even beyond that decade, like 3 or 4 years before that. So a lot of people came into the scene, whether they did it through like Optic or FaZe. A lot of those um, fans came into the scene just kind of off YouTube and watching competitive COD, but they didn't really watch competitive COD, before they got exposed to it, and they never went back and like learned a lot of the history. And I think we've just done a really poor job in general, man, like as a community of like showing the old history and like keeping track of it. Like I reached out to MLG and I was trying to get like the videos of us playing like the 2008 or 2009 MLG national championships. Like those are like the real first like major LAN tournaments for console COD. Nope, they don't even have the video of that stuff still. It's like it doesn't exist. Like there's some YouTube clips of some people around the venues with their cameras, that are still out there on YouTube, but that's it.
There's always this thing about recency bias as well. We spoke about it a little bit on the podcast. People only tend to remember the last year, maybe 2 years, and then when you start going back, it's like they downplay it. It's like, well, the time was very important. There was a lot going on, and you can't just ignore the rest because obviously, while standards are higher now, there was still some very good Call of Duty back in the day.
Oh man, there's some amazing games, man, like legendary matches, like and somehow, some way, like we've got to one day, maybe I can help spearhead it one day, but try to get like a database or a bank of like some of the best matches that got played early on and see if we can find videos and things like that. There's a lot of good stuff on YouTube.
There's a lot of stuff that's been lost too, man. Even stuff dating to like 2013, like MLG Dallas that they had in 2013. It's crazy. I was trying to go back and find a bunch of those matches that I know were on YouTube and they're not on there anymore. And it's like, I hired somebody to get an external hard drive and put together like a compilation of all my matches, like as many as he could find, because these things just get deleted and lost and nobody keeps track of them. And there's so many matches from like you said, like 2008 to 2012 that are just nowhere. They're not on the internet anywhere. You can't view them anywhere. And you'll get like one map. You'll get like map 2 from like a best of 5. And it's like, where are the rest of them, man? I think like there's so much of the history that's lost. It's actually pretty crazy.
I think that even happened from last year. I think I was looking for I think I was doing a show reel or something, and I was looking for some games from Champs, and some of the stuff from Bravo wasn't even. Can't find it. You can't find it. Stuff like that just disappears. So you gotta be on top if you want to keep a hold of these things. It is a shame, though. It is a shame, especially when, like, as you said, some of the history, some of the previous games that we've had, and yeah, it's a long history, and a lot of it is unknown to a lot of people.
I think it'd be interesting to bring back those games in like an old series. But the problem with that old stuff is trying to explain to somebody watching now like where the minimap is. You used to cast no minimap. You had to know that game super well and just go, well, if he's sitting here, he's probably pushing around. The teammates are over here somewhere, let alone where anybody else is. We're just guessing at this point. But before we go, too much further than that, and I want to talk more about Dallas. But we need to talk a little bit about the teams we just saw this weekend. So we'll kind of go through them from bottom to top and talk about it. Toronto Ultra they came 7th to 8th, but they were talking, admittedly, and this is a shout out to Toronto Ultra, tagging us in that video. I saw it on Twitter. Thanks for that. We did call it 3-0 against you, and they went 3-2. Very close. It kind of seems like Toronto Ultra they've gone for this what I call a shotgun approach, but a very deep roster, which allows them to switch people in and out. Haven't found the right combination of players yet. What do you think about their performance over the weekend, Clay?
I think all those players are talented players, and I think that's the issue on that team is that they're having like an identity crisis in a way that there's so many options to choose from and so many different combinations of players and like different pros and cons to each one of them that like although almost every single player on the team from like the starting roster to the substitutes is really, really good. I think they just struggle finding the one that like works the best because that's not an easy thing to see and to just like know and quantify. It's like, oh, these 5 are just the 5 best players. Like that might not be the best team you can assemble. So I think they're just in that weird state where they're just trying to figure it out, like trying to figure out kind of who's doing what or who's definitely starting and who's not starting. And then if you're like on the 5th, 6th spot, you're worried about your spot. And so the confidence is an issue. And it's kind of like a big spiraling thing, kind of having an identity crisis in a way. So I think like once they figure out who the 5 is and they just say, this is the 5 and this is going to be the 5 for the next 5 events minimum, then I think that's when you'll finally see that team start really seeing success. Because I mean, they were literally a couple seconds away from beating beating Chicago. Sorry, I'm still not used to that.
Don't worry, we get it mixed up all the time.
Yeah. And so, they like Chicago just won the last event. For a team like Toronto, who's supposedly like bottom tier, to be seconds away in a Call of Duty match of beating the team that just won the last tournament, I mean, that shows they have promise. It shows they can hang. That shows they can, compete. So it's mainly just a matter of figuring out who the 5 is.
Yeah, I get that. We spoke a lot about Toronto, so I think it's a really interesting case study in a way of building a team. Especially, brings me on to you, Stro. This is a different approach they've made to the way you helped build Dallas Empire. Is there any chance you ever thought about going that route, having a full 10-man roster and trying to figure it out from there?
We considered it, thought about it for a second. I mean, we probably would have done that had we not gotten, all the players that we wanted and assembled the team that we wanted. It was pretty ruthless in the roster mania headed into this league. I mean, every team was throwing money at the players, so
yeah.
I mean, just the way it went. Everybody had Clay. Clay's smiling, dude. Look at that smile, son. Like, look. Yeah, I gave Clay a good contract, and I think everybody else on the team got a good contract for where they are. And yeah, man. I mean, it was tough. Like, it was really tough. It was probably the hardest I've ever worked. That 3 weeks. I mean, pretty much no sleep. Like, calling all these players. Lots of negotiating. And if we hadn't gotten the team we had, we might have just opted to go with like a big ass 10-man roster and do it just like Toronto. I actually like what they're doing there. Like Clay said, I think they have to get to the point where they figure out what the best makeup of 5 players, which best 5 or 5 players that are going to give them best chance as a team. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it might not necessarily be the best 5 players. It might be the best 5 attitudes, or the best 5, the most hardworking 5, some combination of a few variables, that make that team better. And they have a lot of options, and that's always a good thing. So, yeah.
And I was just thinking to myself, like, especially last week when we were talking about it, though, is that they don't have, like, with how accelerated the schedule is, you're in and you're out, and you're in and you're out with, like, in terms of events. But then we said that, Bance came in last week, they had a poor performance, but they've got better. But it was one of these things, was like, they had another poor performance in London after Minnesota, after they brought Bance in, and it was like, well, do we change it again? It's like, so it's a bit of a catch-22, I think, because you have so many options. It's a case of, well, do we just stick with it and see if it is going to work, or do we keep changing? It's like,
but eventually you run out of events. I mean, eventually, like, you're more than halfway through the season, and it's just been loss after loss after loss, and nothing's working. And that's the risk of running that kind of system.
Yeah,
is that if you can't figure it out in time, you kind of canned your season. I mean, so we'll see. I can't tell you what their strategy is or what they're thinking. But I feel like, I'll echo Clay's sentiment. Like, it seems like, we all know that every team in this league can be deadly and at any time. And so, we've like talked a little bit of shit in the beginning of the season, and got a little salty on Twitter, and we're
don't worry, we'll get to that.
Maybe we'll get to it. We'll get to it, man. But we really do understand that at this point, that we're just going to prepare for everyone the same way and just work really hard.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I said, I think Toronto's an interesting case study, and we'll be keeping up with them all season, because I just want to see how it works out. Whether or not the staff can figure it out and put the right people in place is something that remains to be seen. And you are right. The longer the season gets on, the little bit more nervous you get about that team. Moving on to another team here, which I do think maybe had a little bit of a hard run in hindsight, Atlanta, the Optic Gaming team, Optic Gaming Los Angeles. They ended up playing Atlanta first of all. We knew Atlanta were going to take them, right? It wasn't anyone thinking otherwise. And then Florida, Florida came through and ended up knocking them out of the tournament. And we didn't know at the time. We do now that, Florida looked like a very good team that finally found their feet. So what do we think of this Optic? Because this is a team, right? This Optic Gaming team, we've said it all along. We believe this team will at some point find the right combination, because there's too much talent on this roster.
Go ahead. Go ahead, James.
I mean, I don't know, dude. That's what everybody says. Too much talent, too much leadership. Look at that 5, and it's one of the best teams on paper in the league. So, I mean, everybody's thinking it's a matter of time, and I mean, you don't count those players out, and so, like, that's the thing. Like, no matter how poor they look or how, like, you've seen improvement from Minnesota to the event. Like you saw, like the maps got closer, they seemed more organized. And those type of players don't stand for those type of performances. And that's the big thing. Like those dudes aren't just going to sit there and be cool getting, DFR'd every tournament. Like they're not cool with not getting any points. Like they're not cool with everything going on. And so that's the whole thing with them. It's like, just, you can't count those dudes out. And so whether it be a roster change or whether it be an attitude change or just people, finally clicking, like that team will eventually get there one way or another.
Yeah.
I have experience with a couple of those players on that team. I mean, it's about mental fortitude for them, man. Like,
has to be, surely, doesn't it?
Yeah, like they can definitely come back and have a good season. Like they can definitely do it, but their challenge is going to be just keeping their heads together. And like, it's not like it used to be, man, where you could just like call for a roster change if you're pissed off at your teammates. Like, it's not the same anymore. You can't just go and like cry about a couple of your teammates and want to like swap the rosters and you just do it. Like, it's different now. And so you have to really stick it out and like really go to work with your team. And I feel like if that team can keep their heads together and be okay with that and, work hard, then they'll be a threat. And if they can't keep their heads in it, they're going to crumble, man. It's going to be just like a shit show all season.
And they're one of the teams that's actually picked up 2 OK subs as well. I mean, I don't know how much you've listened over the season of this podcast. We have berated some teams about substitutes and how they've acted around them. Not yourselves, though. Not yourselves. But like, you look at the subs they have Chino and Gunjar as well. 2 players who are capable as well. Do you think there's a point where that steps in? Because I know you don't really want to, like, you deal with yourselves, but at the same time, like with the players on that team, as you said, it's more of a Mendel thing. Do they choose to take a change of player? Because, I mean, the talent, as said, should be there. So should that be an issue? Or do you think that they do actually make that change? Because they're one of the teams that did actually make a decent enough effort at the substitutions thing.
I don't know. I mean, I think if you're managing that team, you just have to kind of assess the situation by looking at it every single day. I mean, it's hard for Clay and I to say that. Like, we're just not going to know what their situation is, if I were running that team, I mean, I tell you this, because I've worked with some of those players before. I mean, I would have like real serious group discussions and team discussions all the time with them, because they're going to have to play as a team. If they can't get on the same page, like, I feel like it's going to be like, Slasher and JCap and then everybody else, and so like they're really gonna have to lean on their veterans to be the example, and if they can't be the example, then not gonna work, in my opinion.
It's a situation where I think personally, like, you look at the 5 players on that team, are any of them going to be comfortable getting subbed for what you said, Chino and Gunjar, right? Like, and their teammates are probably going to be like, like, look at that from top to bottom, that whole 5, like, not any 5 of them are less skilled than, Chino or Gunjar. And so you're in a weird situation where, like, it might be just like a solution you think of, but I'm sure none of those players on that team are like, not like, that gives us a better chance, but it's all speculation. Like Mike said, we have no idea what's going on there. Like, for all we know, it could be like, Slasher is the one trying to be the peaceful one for once. Like, we have no idea. We have no idea what's going on over there. So,
oh, dude, I love Austin, man, but he's never really peaceful. Like, if you're losing, dude, Slasher is just like nuclear on everyone, and
we need more behind the scenes from them.
Yeah,
I want to see.
But what if?
I'd love to see the group DM.
Yeah, but Austin's like, obviously one of the best players in Call of Duty all time. Like, you can't argue that.
True.
I always felt like when he was on our team, and if he's watching this or listening to it, like, I love you, dude. But he would really like go off the deep end sometimes when we were on a losing streak or something, and I feel like that was part of what was holding him back as a player. So maybe I'm giving him motivation to get better.
Don't get them better.
I know, dude. I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's he knows this. He knows this by now. Like, he can't like not understand that by now. So anyway,
that Optic team, if they get their stuff together, is going to be scary. You don't want them anytime soon.
We really don't want these teams getting better. I mean, it's hard, dude. Like, it's super competitive this year.
Here's an opposite kind of end of the spectrum. Then the next thing we'll talk about Paris, because you said we spoke about Optic looking great on paper. A lot of people downplayed Paris, right? They had skirmishes at the start of the year. They went in America. They even said there was the rumors going around that people weren't really eager to get them on the kind of the scrim schedule to begin with, because you didn't know how good they were, right? They've come out of nowhere. I mean, this is the kind of their first stumbling block. Well, they played Minnesota twice and lost them twice in close games. What are you going to think of this Paris team kind of almost coming out of, I want to say nowhere, but just more kind of low expectations into high rewards?
Yeah, I mean the team. I think that team, honestly, the lack of practice hurt them to start, but I think they've caught up and they're fine. I think Kismet's looked really, really good this year. I think he's kind of carrying over his performances from last year and kind of showing a little bit of flashiness and a little bit of dominance. So I think Kismet is really looking good this year, and then the squad that they've kind of assembled around him. Around him in a way, I don't know if that's how it was built or not, but like that the team plays around him in a big way if you watch them. They all support really, really well, and they do what they need to do on the map. So I think they're really well coached. I think that team is actually one of the better coached teams in the league, and I think they come a lot more prepared than a lot of other teams give them credit for. And I think that's been a big part to their success, even at London when they got fourth. I think when they went game 5 with Chicago, if I recall correctly. You could tell they were just super prepared. Like they had watched a ton of VODs. They were on top of their angles and on top of the timings and all that stuff. I think that that Paris team is just they made it work. Like the roster, you looked at it and you're like, what? And then like you see them play and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. So I think that team is one of the ones that was definitely a big question mark, but I think is going to be proving themselves this whole year.
Yeah, it's actually a see, I mean, me just being the with my history in Call of Duty, it's weird. Like I like to see other teams have success, that aren't supposed to necessarily get it, in everybody's eyes. So yeah, I mean, every team is scary in this league pretty much, and that's definitely one of them that you have to watch out for, because if they keep making progress, it's going to be tough, to beat those guys. Like that's a team that I can see just like holding their head strong, working really hard, getting really hungry, taking their performances that they've just missed on, where they're really close to getting some really huge wins, and taking the next leap forward and being a major threat to win tournaments. So
yeah. And speaking of a threat to kind of win tournaments as well, our next team we've got to go into here, the London Royal Ravens. They look like there's a possible skill sitting there that they may go much higher. Like people have got a lot of expectations around these players, right? London's one of these teams who maybe haven't got there as far. I mean, they've had some interesting results, reverse swept at home and stuff. It's not the greatest thing to see. But what do you think of the Ravens?
For half of the guests on the show, I think it was pretty nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, I was tiptoeing around it, right? But
yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's a weird thing, dude. Like for some reason, every time I play like a European majority team, if I'm ever down 0-2, I like reverse sweep them like 80% of the time, and I don't know why, and I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, or maybe that number is a lot less than I think it is, or like there's something.
It's
I don't know.
Pretty high, trust me.
Yeah, I've done it a lot, and so as soon as we went up 2-0, I kind of said to the team, I was like, "Yo, win this domination, and we're winning the series." And they're like, "Why do you say that?" I'm like, "Just trust me. Like, win this third map, and we're winning the whole series. Trust me." And then like as it kept going, they're like, "Oh shit, you're right. Like, what is going on?" So, dude, like they're good. Like I think Wusk has looked phenomenal this year. I think he's finally like this game suits him to a T, and he's looked by far and away the best AR.
He's like the best statistical player in the league right now. I think
by 0.2, like by a significant margin, and he's just been dominating. And the fact that they haven't had better performances, like I know like the reverse sweep from us, and then not making it out of pools. Right, they didn't make it out of pools in Atlanta.
No, they didn't. They lost to Florida. Yeah, Florida 3-2.
Yeah, and so like, I just don't like if somebody on your team is performing that well, it's up to the other guys to really step up to the plate and just perform at a consistently like average level, and you'll win every series. Like if Wuskin keeps playing like that, so. It really just hinges on everybody else stepping up. Like I haven't watched a ton of their matches, so like this is all just kind of like what I've seen from what I've played and the matches I have seen. You know, comms still seems super frantic with them all the time, and like I don't know if that's just like the European style of COD comms now, but you know that needs to be cleaned up in a way. And I think that team has the potential to be the greatest European team to ever play Call of Duty. But you know they just got some work to do.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I don't know, man. But at this point, like you guys know this firsthand. I mean, it's just the European players. I feel like they're just like, I don't know. I feel like they just kind of screw themselves in the head, you know, but in the sense that they have some kind of like mental block, man, when it comes to playing like the absolute best teams from North America or the best players from North America, and they just don't get over the hump. But they are like compositionally on that team. It's just a nasty, nasty team. It's like those guys could beat anybody, but I don't know. It's just like there's a confidence issue or something. I don't know what's going on. But again, it's just another scary team that if they get over their own little roadblocks, then yeah, they're
It's
a threat.
crazy how many of these teams are like that too. Like
Yeah.
they're one
Yeah.
step away from being a top 3 contender, and there's
Yeah.
like every team is like that. Too.
Yeah, the whole league is like actually ridiculous. Like it's so sick, man. Like the games from this past weekend were so good. I mean, that's some of the best Call of Duty I've seen in years in one little tournament.
3-2s.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like 3-2s all day. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's only going to get better as well. Like these two, obviously, every team's doing their VOD reviews. They're figuring out their weaknesses. Like map videos are so important this year. Like nobody's going to go down without a big fight now. There's a lot of talent out there for these players. I'm going to jump here, and it'll make sense when we come to the end of this. But I want to talk about Atlanta FaZe. This is obviously, you know, there's a lot of hype coming by Atlanta FaZe coming into the season and stuff, and they've proven it. And things like Simple are ridiculous against Celium, unbelievable. What do you think about Atlanta FaZe? Because obviously, right now they're kind of reputed as the number 1 team.
Good. I mean, they're just good. Like I'm done gassing the kids up, dude. I've said it about them, dude. Like now we're enemies, bro. Like we're not friends anymore. So you know, you know, they're just one of those teams, dude. Young, wanted to play together, have chemistry together from playing together. You know, obviously a lot of talent, all that stuff, and they've got an exceptional coach, probably one of the best coaches in Call of Duty. So all these things added up give you a really scary team, and that shows in their performances. I mean, they didn't lose a round of S&D, you know, until like their 4th S&D or whatever it was. So they got a ton of confidence right now, and I'm really interested to see if they like slip up at all throughout the year, how they react to that, because I think that's the biggest thing with the team that young is how they react to like disappointment and, you know, kind of some struggles. And so, you know, if they just stay winning the whole thing all year, like it's going to be hard to beat them. But I think as soon as they start to slip up a little bit, you know, it's going to be really on Crowder to keep that team together, because I can just see everybody getting super frustrated with each other if they're not winning.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, looking at the results of the weekend, I mean, they are beatable. They are beatable.
Yeah.
They were 3-2 against Minnesota. Everyone was like, oh shit, we're not going to even see them in the finals at this point. But I think that's one thing that you look at everybody across it, and everybody has like weaknesses, or everybody can be beaten, which is like another really good thing competition wise. And that stems back to what you say, like everybody is super good on this game, just with how the player pool is sort of squeezed in a little bit. Obviously there's not as many pro players this year, there's not as many teams. It's just become a super high level, and that they can be beaten is a good thing. I think it's boring if they were just to steamroll over everybody all, yeah, of course. So it's a good thing, but they definitely have weaknesses.
We'll make sure that doesn't happen.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, I mean, they showed some signs of weakness. I mean,
100%.
but it's like they have these little signs of weakness, but then like their top level is just so ridiculously scary, and we've just got to match their top level. Like that's where we have to get the Empire to like that top level where FaZe is, and I know we can compete with them. Like we know we can, and we have been. But we're not going to cash in any more scrim bucks ever, and, ever again, ever again. So yeah, I think that's just like, it's just, we have to get to their top level, and any team that does that will give them a hard time. But if you catch them on an off day or on the shaky moments, like there's going to be a time when they, you know, have their weakness and you can get the kill. But they're tough, man. That's a good team.
Yeah. Yeah, they certainly are. And another team, and this Florida's really interesting because people couldn't figure out how to take them throughout the year, and then I kind of want to say they overperformed and went above people's expectations. I think is probably the best way to put it.
I said they looked all right last week.
Florida Mutineers, right? They came into it. Admittedly, the final was a bit of a one-sided final, what we thought it might be, but there was definitely something there in the Mutineers, right? That there is the signs that they can compete at this level, signs that they can do an awful lot of work. And again, it seems to be the same theme with a lot of these teams, right? Another scary team. It's another team you think, oh, maybe they'll be mid-level, but oh, wow, they've just gone past that. So, yeah, now they're contending for the top 3 spot.
Yeah, I mean, they got a world champion on that team. So I think the Mutineers kind of live and die by their sub players. I think their AR players are really solid and are going to be consistently solid. And like, I don't want to say anything, but like they're just good. Like they're good ARs. They're solid ARs, and they'll do their job. And so like, I think the Mutineers, all their success is going to rely on how well their subs perform and how well their subs are performing day in and day out. Because that was, something I saw this weekend was there was some inconsistency with that team, even map to map in the same series. You're seeing inconsistency. So if the subs are able to clean up their inconsistency and bring it to, a consistently like above average level, I think that, they're going to stay being a competitive team all year and being one of the teams that, can vie for a championship.
Yeah, I think so. I'll be interested to see how because I want to see how the Mutineers carry on throughout the year. I think that's really important to see, is this an uptick? Is this their new standard? Like, how often are we going to see them in the grand finals at these home stands? I'm really curious to kind of benchmark them in my mind because I had them a little bit lower. And obviously, it's okay being wrong when you analyze a team like that, but you got to see whether or not it's consistent. Jumping forward, because I do want to get on to talk about Dallas, and we've got 2 more teams to cover here. The Minnesota Rocket, or Rocket, or however you're supposed to say it, I still don't get that right anytime. I think this is another interesting team because while they're 4th in the rankings at the moment, are they 4th in the rankings? Yeah, 4th in the rankings. It's not been the cleanest of things for them. Like, I never know where to benchmark this team because I think it's one of these teams where they can have a good game against anybody, but I don't see them in the elite tier. But then again, I think they can lose against quite a lot of the league teams. So it's very difficult for me to figure out where to put these guys.
Yeah, I think, I've been watching them a lot, actually. I think, and I have experience, obviously with Justin and Adam, being in our organization for a little while. And that's a team that might not have this is my take. The Rocker doesn't have a skill ceiling as high as like FaZe, right? Like they're not going to be at their top level, isn't going to be anywhere close to FaZe's top level, I don't think, but they will be more consistent at their top level. Does that make sense? Like, because they just work hard and they show up. And I really like Asim too. I think he's just one of those guys that fits in with those other players, like Silly and Assault, and like their top level will be hit more consistent than a lot of other teams because they're just willing to show up, get the job done, not complain too much. And I feel like they'll be more consistent at their top level than a lot of the other teams will be. And they can be a threat because of that, just that alone, because they might just come into the weekend at the same level that they always are. And if 1 or 2 teams just have a bad weekend, they can still come out with a win sometimes. So again, another team that you have to look out for.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like I said, it's an interesting team for me. Right now, I don't put them at the elite. I think 4th is a really good position for them. But it's just going to be like how those matchups work during the year and what kind of energy they come in with. Because I do think the Rocker, they have enough here for me to be confident of saying, you know what, top 4, I could easily see them that at the end of the season. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. But I'd be more surprised, if it was like 1 or 1st or 2nd. Like that would be a big surprise for me. Which is interesting. It seems like a consistent team, but not a team with a super high spike. Let's move on to our last team because this is, and you will understand why I jumped now. Chicago. Because we can now talk a little bit about Dallas. We can talk about the rivalry. We can talk about, this team here. The E-Clasico, as it was known, has seemed to have transferred over. It has moved now. It's, Dallas versus Chicago seem to be going at each other an awful lot. Obviously, they got beaten this time around. That's kind of their first loss they've taken so far. What do you kind of think about this team, just from a team perspective, before we get deeper into the rivalry?
Yeah, I mean, I think the roles on the team are pretty much perfect for a team like Chicago. I mean, everybody fits in to a slot especially in this game where it actually works out really well. And I think the game suits a lot of those players. I think that, they've been working really hard since the start of the season, and obviously with a little chip on their shoulder. And they've showed up. Like they've showed up, and as it's gotten progressed through like Minnesota and then through London, and then even seeing them play in Atlanta, like you're seeing the playing field with all the teams, not just Chicago, but with all the teams kind of leveling out a bit. And I hope to see, some better performances out of us versus them. But, you're seeing improvement in our matches. Like if you watched our match at Minnesota to our last match at London versus them, like it's two different teams that, we were. And so, the personal like rivalry between me and them, like it's whatever for me. I think as long as we're seeing progression, playing against some of the best players in the world, that's all you can really ask for from a team like ours. And I really think that those players on Chicago are some of the best to be playing right now. I think I think really highly of Varsity. I think super highly of Scump, and I think Envoy has been kind of the X factor on that team, and it's kind of been not going to give away too much of our strategy, but we've kind of been hard focusing on where the fuck is Envoy. And so that's been really where like the one of our main focuses now. And so honestly, I think that team is going to be one of the best all year, and I think it's going to be one of the most heated rivalries between us all year, and hopefully it starts swinging our way as the season progresses.
I think a few people were disappointed not to see them against Atlanta, but I think with the way that Chicago were playing, and we were discussing this with Maven on Twitter this week, I think they would have got smoked. And I think, everyone was talking about this Chicago-Atlanta thing, and they want to see them play. They want to see you guys play against Atlanta. The way that Chicago are playing, I don't think it would have just been dead in the water, I think. It just didn't look right this weekend. I don't know what it was. It was just a slow performance. I think they looked much better the previous couple of weeks, but yeah, I think a very, very solid team. I don't think anyone would take that away.
Yeah, they're good, man. They're just good.
They're just good.
They're a good team. And we have some catching up to do. But we kind of, coming into like the scrimmages, like we were just doing so well online and playing in scrimmages, and it's not like I don't think we talked a ton of smack or anything. Like we were just proud of like what our team was doing. And at the time, like when I got all salty about the power rankings, which I was absolutely wrong about. I was wrong. I apologize to Mike Kent and DeSerto that night, by the way, that night. But I'm, here we are like 2 months later and I'm still hearing about it. But yeah, so I apologize. But, like I just felt like, our guys deserve some credit just based off, what you had, the information you had. But, you also had the information of just, like that team has 5 veteran players on it, or at least 4. And I think Envoy has got a great head on his shoulders. So, we just have to settle down and settle in and we'll get there, man. Like we're really confident in our team and we'll keep trying, but those guys are really good and they have that veteran mentality coming in where they're just composed and comfortable. And not to say that our young guys don't, but they're just going to get better with experience, like I think we have a lot of, potential that's not unlocked yet on our team, and we just got to keep working on unlocking that potential. And like Clay said, if you watch the games, like we've lost every time to them, but if you actually go back and watch every game, you'll see like literal progress in every single map that we play against them for the most part. And that gets me excited, and that's what we're focusing on. If we can just keep improving, we'll be able to contend with them. But yeah, like I don't have necessarily any big personal grudges against that team. Like, I mean, one of my favorite moments in Minnesota when I was there to open the season was just catching up with Formal, outside. And I have ultimate respect for Alec and Arcides and what he's doing and how he's composed himself and played the last few years. Like, dude's a beast, and that whole team is going to be tough to beat. And so, they've kind of taken it to another level in the rivalry, I think, at this point, with making t-shirts and stuff. And,
I was gonna bring that up, right? Because we all knew there was gonna be a little bit of a rivalry with you anyway, right? The history of you and Hex goes back so
fun,
far.
man.
Were you surprised at all at how furious that rivalry became? Like, obviously, like it's never going to be that deep for you players, but obviously this rivalry was always going to occur, but it seemed to have just exploded. Like it went from being, they're rivalries, it's the E-Classico again, to like fans just going venom on Twitter, just going absolutely berserk.
Oh yeah,
out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, it's funny, man. It's like I think I can't remember which loss it was that we took to them, but I just had to sit on Twitter and I just had to block people because, dude, at the end of the day, if you send some really nasty like tweet at me or some kind of a dick tweet, like I'm just gonna block you, dude. Like I don't need you in my life sending me negativity on my Twitter feed, right? Like it's easy for me to go click, click, block, like bye, And I was thinking, I was like, damn, like when we would be Optic and knock them out of the World Championship or something, like what does Hector sit there and block all the Envy fans, And sure enough, like yesterday, somebody was like, yeah, Hector blocked me, soft ass, whatever, like started calling Hector soft. And I'm like, well, I guess Hector blocks some people too, because when you have bad days, like, they didn't have the best weekend, like you get a little angry, and if the fans start ribbing you, man, like, you have to just sit there and block people so you don't have to deal with their shit later. And the rivalry is real if Hector's blocking people and on Twitter, because the dude is just the nicest guy ever. And it's just, kind of the king of interacting with the fans. But yeah, dude, if you're a fan out there and you're going to send some nasty hate, I get so many tweets that are like, dude, can you block me? You blocked me 6 years ago. And I'm like, I'd never even respond. It's like, nope, not unblocking you, dude. Like, don't want to deal with you. I don't care how much more mature you are now. But yeah, man, rivalry's good. It's fun. We want to win. We absolutely want to win. We get pissed off when we lose to them. They're a great team, and we're going to be gunning for them. So they got to keep working hard.
Yeah, so that was probably the same for you, Clay, as well, right? Like it's just one of the things that went from being a reasonable rivalry to, oh god, it's just fire on the timeline all the time. And obviously, Chicago have their part in that. They went in as well. Like they knew what they were doing. Scum's clearly having a lot of fun with the rivalry, especially against Crim.
It's always fun when you're winning, man. It's always fun when you're on the winning side. But the second you hit the losing side, it's like, I'm proud of our team, man. I'm really proud of like Clay and the boys for just dealing with it the right way.
Yeah, it's I mean, I've dealt with that for ever now. I mean, like, so I'm not. It's nothing new to me. I mean, there's definitely
Clay. You literally paint a target on yourself. By the way, like he voluntarily like puts a bullseye on him. He's like, come at me.
I know what I'm tweeting. Like, I'm aware. I've been doing this a long time. And the thing about it's like, I think the extra like powder, was kind of the whole Crim thing, and then how Crim has reacted to all of this. I think that he's ever really been dropped before in this situation, and so I can sympathize with him because I've been there, and like I'm like, oh, I know how you're feeling, dude. Like you'll get used to it. Trust me. It's like
you should just looked at it and just said, "You did this to me."
Yeah, I know. Oh no, I've roasted him. I was like, dude, imagine winning a tournament, having the second highest KD on a 4-win streak, and you get dropped, huh? Right?
Yeah,
imagine how that feels.
And
dude.
having the most tournament wins all time. Yeah. Is he number one in prize money, or is Damon?
I think Damon is.
Damon's maybe number one in prize money, but dude, like, yeah, you get dropped. It's like I think Crim's like going through like some post-traumatic stuff sometimes. Or at least he was for a little while there.
Yeah,
it was like,
for a little bit.
He was like, I got dropped? What do I do now? Like, what? He didn't know where to go. Yeah, but he just didn't know where to go. He was just like, what happens? What happens now? And so he's finding his footing with us, man. And I'm spending a lot of time with him every day. But the dude, I love having Ian on our team, man.
Me too.
Oh my
God.
love
it too.
Could not be happier, because the dude is just, you talk about, he's the Terminator. He's literally the Terminator. Like the dude is Arnold Schwarzenegger, like steel rods in his arms, like shows up and wants to kill everyone. And I love it. So love having him.
Yeah,
go on. Go
ahead. You go.
No, sorry. I was want to talk more about the team. Because here's the interesting thing for me, right? Is Dallas Empire are what we like to call a legacy team, right? You had history included you with Envious, and then obviously you've come over, which gave you, in my opinion, a great step forward. Because you knew the scene, you knew the players, you knew the team. Like it's a great advantage to have being a legacy team. What was it like? And we'll cover both sides of this. Stro, for you building a team for this new generation, right? Like you had to get all these players in, you had a new franchise. I mean, it must have been absolute chaos, from when you had to kind of set up basically everything new and then figure out where to go roster-wise. And you were fairly open in talking about it. You kept putting tweets out on videos and saying, we're building things a different way and stuff. How was that for you?
It was very stressful.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. Let me tell you guys. I mean, I'll tell you guys the stories. Like, in the very beginning, I mean, dude, I don't even know if should I give you guys really juicy stuff?
Yes.
Always.
Yeah, I'll
We talk about a lot of things on this podcast. Don't worry.
I'll give you guys the real deal. You got a couple hundred people watching, so they get to hear the juicy stuff. Like, dude, I wanted to, like, we were gonna sign a completely different team. Like, we didn't even know Crim6 was in the very beginning. Like, we didn't even know Crim6 was going to be available. Like, the team I wanted to sign initially, because it was just the players I could get. I hadn't even talked to Clay yet. Like, I didn't know if we could get Shotzi off of Toronto. I didn't even know if we could get Illy and Clay were kind of a package from United. So, like, I was trying to put like Hook together with like Octane, Arcides, Envoy, and Gunless was like how it was going to go. And then if it wasn't Gunless, it was Enable, you know? And so like that was like the initial roster we were going with. And then like Seattle came in and like wanted them. And then like, I don't know, it's kind of got all messy with like them getting bigger offers from other teams. And then that team ended up splitting, like saying, "Oh, we're going to go play for Seattle," and they didn't end up going to Seattle and came back. It was like, "Hey, is the offer still on the table?" And at that point, it was like, "No, like I'm already moving forward with like Crim and Clay became kind of on the radar, and then it was just immediately like, "Yep, I'm going for Crim and Clay," and not going anywhere else. Any like other players were coming back to me like, "Hey, let's talk again," and I was just basically at that point like, "Nope, we're already moved on." And it was just a matter of can we get Illy and Shotzi, and Illy was kind of the easier one to get, and then Shotzi we had to negotiate with Toronto a lot because they saw a lot of potential in him, but we made it all work in the end. And I don't want any other team. I'm like, this is the team I want, and I hope by the end of the year we prove why. So
that's fair.
I'm really happy with where we ended up, but it was chaos.
I've got a follow-up question for that, but I'm going to leave it because I'm aware that at some point we're losing Clay because he's got to go scrim. Clay, I want to talk to you about your off season. You know, signing for Dallas. You know, prestigious organization already coming into it. We knew Dallas was going to be a big name this year, regardless. Legacy team. How was it for you in the off season, going from like, you know, world champion, you know, back at the top, back-to-back winners, and then obviously your team just kind of went in all different directions. Was that kind of like a weird transition for you? You know, roster mania coming back up again, but maybe the biggest roster mania in COD history.
Yeah, I mean, it was very stressful. Like, not a lot of information. There's not a lot of communication. You know, we all on E United, at least 4 out of 5 of us, were under contract to stick throughout the next year together, and so like that was something we had already pre-planned for. And we're kind of all just waiting for United to tell us if they got a spot or not. And they kept kind of stringing us along and being like, you know, we're on the 1 yard line. Now we're on the 6 inches away, like 2 inches away. Oh, no, we didn't get in. And it's like, okay, well, now we're like a month behind the get because y'all have been like selling us on that fact that y'all are in. So now we got to figure this out. And it became very apparent that like, what Simp and Alec and Tyler all wanted, salary wise, like there's no way you're gonna get all 5 of us on the same team. Like you're going over the cap, like 100% going over the cap, and you know, it just became apparent that like it wasn't gonna happen. And so as soon as I got kind of like the we're gonna see other options, I immediately was like, okay, I need to go into free agent mode right now. I need to figure all this out. And it was a matter of there was no information on like who the franchise owners were, what their numbers were, what their emails were. Like we had no contact anywhere, and so it's like obviously I started calling up the ones I did know, which is like Mike, Ogre2 in Florida. You know, just calling the people I did know and being like, hey, do you have contacts for the rest of them too, and kind of just getting like a lay of the land. And dude, I spent that 2 or 3 weeks of me figuring it out. It's weird. You like win the back-to-back and you win champs, and you're supposed to be able to like enjoy your off season. And I was just insanely stressed the whole time. And like
everybody was, man.
It was obviously it's a good position for me to be in because like my stock is high. We just went back-to-back, you know, and so it's a good position. I'm not like, you know, saying that it's not a good position, but it was very, very stressful. And like I'm talking to people on the phone about plans, and by the time I get off the phone, the plans have changed, and I gotta like call them back and tell them of the new plans. But then while I'm on the phone, the plans change again, and so it's like I'm talking to 2 people. I'm like in Discord and TeamSpeak, talking on the phone, like trying to like organize all these things. And dude, it was just meetings after meetings after meetings. I'd wake up at 9 a.m. and have a meeting on the hour every hour until 5, and for 3 weeks. And it was that's no lie.
Now multiply that times 5.
Yeah, no, sure. And so it was just all over the place, man. And it was crazy to see the market because I mean, I remember like even the first time I called Stro, he was just like, it was super early on, super early on, and he was just like, nah, like we don't have the budget for you. Don't like, good luck. And so I was like, okay. And as it went on and like the whole market kind of fleshed itself out, like I call him then a month later and he's like, okay, we'll work with you now. Like we'll see where we can go. And so
that's just me being a good negotiator. I wanted him the whole time. Yeah, I'm actually dead serious. But honestly, he I mean, we got to the point where literally I could not pay these guys more. So
it came to the point where some teams, like there was options for me to go to a franchise and be the first player on the franchise and then build the team around me and get paid an absurd amount of money, and like even more so than I would get paid somewhere else. And it came down to just like organizing my own thoughts in my head and just being like, what do I want out of the team? Where do I want to live? What kind of organization do I want to play for? All these things that are factored in, like moving and yada yada. And it really just became like, I want to be on a team that number one knows Call of Duty, that like the org is familiar with Call of Duty and how it operates. And so that's where NB checks it off. And then it's like number two, I don't really want to move very far away. And I was living in Austin, Texas, which is only like 3.5 hours away from Dallas. And then number three, the most important one was a team that can win. And that's really like I had a whiteboard with all the players' names and like where they said they were going, where I thought they were going to go, like who I could potentially get, like kind of like what roles they played. And the teams that I was assembling on these other orgs was just like, oh man, like this is like, it's going to be a lot of taking chances on like 3 players and with like one other solid, like proven player. And it just became apparent, like if I'm going to still compete and still be here doing this and still putting my time every day into this and the majority of my time into this, like I want to be on a team that can win. Like it's not about really like making as much money as possible or, whatever, like living in a lavish apartment or whatever. It's like, I want to be on a team that is motivated every day to get on and practice and that knows how to win and that can win. And so that's why it became like a super easy decision for me once Empire and like Hook approached me. It was just like, yes, I want to do this. Let's do this. Let's figure it out any way possible.
I think
Are they in the room with you right now?
Yeah, Shotzi.
Yeah, give us a shot, man. I want to see them.
Okay. Can I pull this up?
He's like talking about his teammates right here. Let's see.
Wait, where are they all? Can you see? Ant, say hello to the camera. Got the mark in the background. I can't finagle this. It's too.
Yeah, it's okay.
I think that's something we talked about, right? We cover a lot of the business on the podcast, and obviously I rant about a few things. I've said a few things on podcasts, both good and bad about various organizations. But we talked about that entire aspect of it, right? There are some players, and I know this from the rumor mill and the grapevine, and talking to some players who went into this year just looking for that big paycheck. That's all they cared about. They didn't care about the rest of it. And we know that obviously players are possibly the worst people at keeping things to themselves. So everybody hears everything eventually anyway. This inflated salaries, this put, people wanting more and more. And I've got to say this, I thought the salary cap was too high. I said this on many podcasts. Right now, because of the asking prices, it didn't seem like it was enough for some orgs, right? It was so difficult to get players in. But I think what you said there, Clay, is so important because we've heard about that before, right? And people who don't watch other things with salary caps, there has to be a decision made at some point. Do you want to get wins? Do you want to get a bigger chip? Do you want the right people around you? Because if you want to, you could ask for $500,000 and then, the team's like, well, we need now, technically 6 other players. We've got to get subs as well. And who else are we going to get? If we form a God squad, we might not be able to pay them. So I think that's really interesting that you kind of came into their mentality. I don't think all the players did that, if I'm perfectly honest, especially the ones I heard. Some people just went, yeah, I'll just take the biggest money on this team. Thank you very much. But that's super interesting. And I'm glad you said about, the Empire being a team you kind of wanted to go for simply because of their history. And it makes sense to me, right? Like for you, Hastr0, this is very personal. I know it's very personal, right? We've talked COD for a long time as well. what does it mean kind of coming in and getting that franchise spot and going into the next generation of Call of Duty? Because this is a new era, right? This is a whole different ball game. It's still Call of Duty, but a lot of the aspects of business stuff has changed for it. Do you feel any pressure coming into this, like, the franchise era?
Yeah, I mean, dude, look, I'm about to turn 37 years old in May. I started doing this when I was 23. So this is 14 years, dude. This has been my life. It has been 40% of my life. Like, this is it. I mean, this is what I've done with my life. I mean, it's not some small thing for me. I've literally dedicated my life to this. So it's tough, man. Like, coming into where you get thrown into the position where you have to, I effectively had to take a lot of investment capital, to afford to buy into this Call of Duty League. And like, I'm that committed to it, man. And so are people like Hector, right? Like, we had to give up a lot just to get into this thing, to be honest. And so it's not like it was some small decision. And to come into it, it's very, it's like gambling in many ways. I mean, and so and all high risk investments are, right? Like, we've been to the casino before, right? Like, you've been with me, you see. Like, yeah. And I always won when I came to London, right?
Yes.
But yeah, you guys know. And so, like, all my chips are still on the table, man. Like, they're on the table, dude. It's like you hear all these like valuations of esports organizations and the multi tens of millions that all these esports organizations are worth. And for the most part, I've left all my chips on the table, and I've they've constantly climbed and climbed and climbed, and they're still on there, and at any time you can lose a few big hands. And so this is definitely one of those hands where you went from betting $100 a hand to betting $10,000 a hand. And that's the one, if you lose, you lose. And so, yeah, risking everything to build our franchise in Dallas, and with the Overwatch League team and the Dallas Empire and the Call of Duty League. And yeah, it's pressure, man. It's real pressure. And so I've had to kind of learn over the years how to deal with that. And sometimes I'll still get salty on Twitter, obviously, and sometimes I'll get angry or whatever. But at the end of the day, man, like, I love this shit. It's what I've basically been put on planet Earth to do, is to help build Call of Duty esports, and hopefully it keeps growing.
I will say, walking through the office and like seeing like the Contenders team, and then us, and then the Fuel and the Counter-Strike team, and then like the whole like staff, is like a super surreal moment for me. Like, and I'm sure it is for you, because like this is all yours, Like, and it's one of those things where it's like, I never thought I'd see the day where this would be like a thing. Like, we have 4 different teams, like, all next to each other in their own rooms, practicing their own thing with their own coaches and their own gameplay and their own game, and all under one umbrella that's like this team, and I think it's really, really cool. I actually enjoy coming into work every day, because it's like not work. Like, I'm coming to play games with a bunch of other gamers, like, that's literally what it is.
Yeah. So so while we're at it, like, it's like, oh yeah, we took all this investment, we went and bought these franchise league teams, and we got into the CDL, we got into the Overwatch League. But for me, I was like, if my chips are on the table, fuck it, why not? Let's do some crazy shit. And like, we haven't announced it or anything yet, but there's I'm putting a fucking 24-foot LED wall into our office. I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna drop $200,000 on a screen. And so I did it, and it gets installed in like 2 weeks, like less than 2 weeks. It gets put into our office, and it's just gonna be this massive LED wall. And I'll call Nadeshot up and tell him his are cute, because those things are small compared to what we're putting in our office. Like, sick place, by the way. Like, 100 Thieves, the Cash App compound is ridiculously nice. Like, loved what they did there. So props to Matt and his team. Like, they're killing it, dude.
With small LED walls.
And it's but
small LED walls.
But they went they went with the cute little LED walls. We went for the massive in your face, like, what's up LED wall, and so it's just the way we roll. So I'm excited to, just like Clay said, just have our players interacting with each other. That thing is going up in like the player lounge, so like, when they want to come in on a Sunday to watch CDL on their bye week, they can watch it on a 24-foot wall, and just hang out with the other players from other teams. And talk to our mental skills coach, talk to our physical training or performance coach, and then just hang out with other players and be like-minded with professional gamers from all over the world. I mean, the Dallas Fuel has, I think, like 8 different nationalities represented. I think 7 or 8 on the
that's
team.
crazy.
So,
yeah,
crazy stuff.
Just, I mean, I've got so many follow-up questions that Mike, but I'm aware that we're cutting into Clayster's scrim time here.
Yeah, I got to skedaddle here shortly.
One last thing before you, and then I'm sure we can continue with Mike for a little bit more. I've got some follow-up questions for him. What has it been like, Clay? Because you talked about the facility and stuff, and going into the office and almost a new level of professionalism, right? You've got to come into work, you've got to do this, and you said it's not work, but at the same time, there are, I want to say, more real world kind of responsibilities for you now. You come in here, you have this infrastructure, this background. It's not just sitting in a dark room somewhere in your own place. Chilling out and stuff. How has it been kind of adapting to a basically more professional atmosphere?
For me personally, I was looking forward to it. Like I was ready for the change, I guess, in my life. Like I'm getting to that point. Kind of. I don't want to say I'm getting old. Sorry, Mike, but I'm getting there. So
you're old as shit, dude. Yeah. You are for Call of Duty players. Yeah. How old are you now? You're
27,
like 29?
almost 28.
Oh, okay,
almost
yeah, 28.
Yeah. So like for me, honestly, I really was just comfortable with having like the change and having to come in every day, and because it allows me to kind of I don't want to say box it away, but draw boundaries between like when I'm competing and when I'm getting better, when I'm improving in Call of Duty. And then like once I'm done with practice and VOD review and all that, like I go home and I hang out with my girlfriend, I hang out with my dogs, and I do whatever I want, and I don't have to like be like kind of guilted or feel peer pressure to put in like 12-hour days anymore. And it allows for a much healthier lifestyle balance where I can then come in and give my full every day that I'm in here practicing and give 100% dedication and motivation and being present. And then when I'm done and I can go home and I can relax or do whatever I want. And it allows me to actually perform better in game because I'm like playing an amount that is like comfortable for me. And I'm able to like, I got to get dressed, got to get ready, go drive my car here, park, walk in, interact with some people, and then sit down and we're doing our job. And then once we get up, we're done doing our job. And it's not like some pressing thing to like go home and stream 8 hours afterwards or go make the money this way or go do this brand opportunity. It's like, no, I can actually have time to myself now. And it allows me to be more focused on like the important things in my life. And so I think for some of the younger guys, they probably don't like it. I'm sure that Illy wants to sit in his room in his pajamas instead of coming in every day. But
Illy wants to play the game 19 hours a day.
So
he just wants to play.
I think that's just a age difference probably, and like I've just been doing it so long that I actually, it gets lonely sometimes just sitting in your room every day playing Call of Duty and like practicing online every day and like being able to see people in person and being able to pull VODs up in person and go over it and be able to just like shoot the shit in person with each other, not on team, like on comms, like we can actually sit here and talk to each other. It goes a long way, man, and it helps improve every facet. The infrastructure's built us up, and now we have all these people trying to help us get better and the facilities to help us get better and lift us up. And it's just a matter of utilizing all that and really taking it as the blessing that it is, So thanks, Mike.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's no problem. Don't worry, I'm gonna grill him about his facility soon enough.
Come visit sometime, guys. You guys should see our snack closet.
Dude, I'm 100% in. I remember the monster fridge from the old Envious house. That was the best thing ever. That made me happy.
Yeah. The monster fridge was fantastic. We have like 3 of them still around here.
There's one in here.
we still have one around, even though we can't work with Monster anymore because the energy category was league protected. So the league, can get a Monster sponsorship, but the teams can't. But yeah,
I'm running past a little bit, boys. I don't want to cut you off or anything.
No.
But I have to go,
man.
Guys. Hey, thanks for having me on. Thanks for everybody watching.
Thank you.
I appreciate the conversation, guys. I hope you all have a great rest of your show. Great day.
No problem. We'll see. We'll catch up with you later in the year. Have a good practice time.
Thanks, guys.
Later, y'all.
No problem. All right. Well, let's move on to some of those follow-up questions then, Mike, because there's you said before you've watched some of the shows. I'm sure you've watched me rant about various aspects of the business on this. Just a little bit. I'm a little bit known for being a bit ranty on
just
business.
A little bit.
For you, you're talking about. We talked a little bit about the salary cap, and I want to get some more of your thoughts on it. Kind of working within that budget and the way that players have been maybe more money focused this year. There's always been a bit of money focused in the last 3-4 years, and salaries have gone up. But for me, I was always very curious about the business side of it, because not only do you know Call of Duty, so maybe you can negotiate a little bit better with some of these players, knowing they're realistic stock rather than what you've just heard from people. But also, working within that boundary of trying to create a team that works to a budget, but also saying, you probably never wanted to hit a salary cap. But at the same time, the way the league currently is, a lot of teams have hit it from what I've heard. How was it kind of working and getting down to the brass tacks of, right, well, this is how we can afford to put this team together. I need, $20K off this guy, or I need to negotiate better with this guy because he's asking for so much. What was that like for you doing that?
Yeah, it was different. It was super difficult. And by the way, we call it a competitive balance tax.
Yeah.
So it's not actually it's not called a salary cap.
Sorry.
So you can actually go over it. But there's a competitive balance tax that gets applied if you go over that threshold, where you pay penalties for going over. And it's basically like a match to match penalty for the amount you go over, the amount you pay in. So it's there to balance, the fact that one team just doesn't go out and not care and blow through millions of dollars raising up the player salaries, and it's not there to protect us from higher salaries. It's there to make sure that the competitiveness is somewhat maintained, the fair playing field, that one team just doesn't go out and win the league every single year because somebody just has so much money that they just don't care about. They just want the trophies, and it just wouldn't be that interesting of a league if you had that going on. And so anyway, it was difficult to get the 5 players we wanted on the team and make sure we could fit there. Yeah. Because these guys, I mean, look, man, I want to pay these guys a lot of money. I'm proud. I tweeted out yesterday.
12 million. I saw it.
Yeah. I've asked our CFO, can you give me through our history how much money we've paid in player salary, not including prize money. I think we've pulled in almost $7 million in prize earnings, maybe a little bit more if some of the stuff online is not accurate. So, almost $20 million we've paid the players, over $12 million in salaries over my years. And that's not a small amount of money. I mean, that doesn't include operational expense of our company outside of wages, like my staff's wages and, all the other expenses that we have, everything else. It's just straight raw money to the players. And I'm proud of that. And I am proud to have given so many people a great lifestyle and found some of the best pro gamers in the world to represent our brand and have won so many different championships and world championships in different games. I'm proud of all of that. And for us coming to the CDL, I wanted to take care of the players. And to do that, it was hard to balance it all and give everybody what they wanted. But we made it work. I'm super happy with the team we came out with.
No, I agree. I think you guys have done very well out of it. It's one of these ones where it's, for me, that business side of it, and sorry for calling it a salary cap. It's just I always reference it to the NFL. It's really
everybody calls it. I call it that sometimes too, to be honest. But I was just letting you guys know if you cared. That's what we call it.
So it's interesting because not only that, right, but obviously your legacy within Call of Duty has led you to kind of because we spoke about this and you tweeted it out as well. And one thing I do want to credit you with here, Hastr0, is something that a lot of organizations haven't been doing that I've been very passionate about: transparency and telling people what's going on with your organization. Right, you do updates on videos on Twitter. We see you talk an awful lot about what you're trying to do with Dallas. And it includes things that I'm very, very curious about now. I'm going to ask you about. Clay talked about it, the other coaching staff you have in. I think you said the physical coach, the mental conditioning stuff. You said that was in from the outset. I think we quoted a tweet of yours probably 6 months ago talking about it. We know every franchise doesn't currently have that. I want to kind of find out from you why you think it's so important, why you've gone down that route, and why, basically that people should be making more big deal of it. Because I do believe that it's a very important aspect of essentially you're paying, 1.5 million out to these players every year, getting the most out of what essentially is an asset, or getting the most out of that expenditure by making sure these guys are on top of their game.
Yeah, and we still have some work to do there, man. This is just the infancy of that stuff for our organization, right? We're finding new ways to help the players out every day. But just it goes on the organization side too, like the front office stuff. Like we hired a ticket sales director, and there are lots of organizations. I mean, most of them don't even have a ticketing person. to help sell their tickets to their events. We're running 6 events here, including our 5 Overwatch League events in Dallas this year. And that's just another example of, we've built out a big infrastructure, like way more than a lot of other teams have. Some teams are focused on selling apparel and their content, and some teams are just focused on content and selling sponsorships against that content.
Some are doing none of it.
We're focused on we're focused on doing some of that, right? But our real focus has been on, let's build the best damn local market for esports in the world. Let's build the best fans in the world. Let's build the best experiences at our live events in the world. Let's build.
This is a good spot.
Dallas as the best fans in esports. We want to build the best fan base in esports at a local level and fill up our arenas every time we have an event. And that's where we've put a lot of our time and resources on the front office side. But on the competitive side, we're adding the same level of infrastructure where we have Mike McCory, our mental skills coach. We have Kyle, our physical trainer. Like I tweeted out a video, I think a month ago or so, of Shotzi. I came in one morning and Shotzi was like getting stretched out and like doing recovery after his workout from the day before when he first got started with our physical trainer. Like
DOMs are a serious thing.
Yeah. Like he was super sore, and so it was just an hour session to get his soreness out the next day. That's how hard he was working. And so I love seeing that stuff. I love seeing our players take advantage of the resources that we're giving them and enjoying the facilities that we have. I mean, it's super rewarding. I mean, you got to understand, for the people in the chat who don't know much about me, I mean, we used to run our team out of a team house, like a 3,000 square foot house, and there was no furniture in the early days. I'm serious. We had plastic fold out tables that we had our setups on. We had basic ass mattresses on the floor, no dressers, no nothing. We had our suitcases, our clothes, our shaving kits, our toiletries and hygiene shit, and like a mattress, a blanket, a pillow, and our gaming stations. And like, that's how we started. And, now it's just completely transcended into this whole new realm of just, resource. And, we were playing for $8,000 in the national championship back then, split 4 ways.
Yeah.
You're playing for $2,000. That was the biggest prize we had in 2008 and 2009. And nowadays, I mean, I pay these guys $2,000 in a day almost, it's like, it's crazy.
No, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like I said, we spoke about it a lot here because it's something I'm very passionate about. And I think people, especially some of the fans, they have the tendency to overlook this kind of thing, right? Like it's not something that's always, we've talked about it, but I don't see an awful lot of people talking about it. How do you make sure a player's energy levels are stable throughout the day if they're eating whatever they want? Let's face it, right? It's better now, but some pros still have very bad habits. Very bad habits.
I mean, there was a discussion this morning. I mean, when I walked in, I was talking to Clay. Actually, I'm just like one room over right now. I'm in my office right now. But I was talking to Clay in there, and he was getting set up. Or I was talking to Marcus when he was in there setting up our player manager, and Ant walked in. He'd been sick with the flu, and I asked him. I said, "Are you getting sleep?" So what's it at? What are your hours like? He said, "I'm getting plenty of sleep." So what are you eating? So we went through what he was eating currently, and then we talked about ways that he can not get sick again, because I think it was coming off the London trip. So there are things that we're focused on, and he's working with our other coaches to make sure he's staying in good shape. But he's doing everything he needs to do. It's just one of those things. You just can't avoid getting sick sometimes when you're on an airplane for 18 hours over 4 days.
Really careful about it right now.
Yeah. Tell me about it, man. Yeah. Hopefully that situation goes well. Praying for the world.
Hopefully.
Yeah, man.
Let's move on from potential epidemics to we spoke a little bit about the facility and stuff, and how much is involved with under this brand, because I find it very interesting that you're building all these separate verticals, right? You've got Dallas Fuel, you've got the Empire, Envious is still about. Has it been a weird transition from going from all Envy all the time and being that number one focus to now I've got these essentially separate verticals, but still in the same house, right?
Yeah, it's completely different now. Yeah, I mean, it's just different, right? Like I really started to learn over the years. We started running multiple teams in different games in 2014, I think.
Yeah,
2013 or 14. We started with like Gears of War, I think was our first. We actually did that earlier, maybe like 2012. But then we got into like StarCraft and League of Legends, and we started playing in all these different games. Counter-Strike, obviously, we had a great tear through the Counter-Strike world. But it's changed now when you create new brands, because you have to cater that brand in a different way to the different fans of that game. Like Overwatch fans are really different than Call of Duty fans. Like the way, even at our event, we just had a sellout crowd for our first event for Dallas Fuel this year, our opening weekend. And dude, like the people that we had running around shooting t-shirts out of cannons and stuff like that, and like the things that we were doing in between the games are things like I would not do for the Call of Duty crowd, because they're a bunch of punks, man. Call of Duty fans, and I'm one of them. Like Call of Duty fans are just, they want to get rowdy, they want to drink beer, they want to like talk shit, and like it's more of like a UFC WWE kind of feel when you go to a Call of Duty event. And like Overwatch is like yeah, let's get loud, let's cheer, let's boo the other team, but it's all hugs and kisses. Outside of that, like Overwatch is like a walk through the garden, and Call of Duty is like walking through Skid Row. It's like, it's just different. And you have to be able to talk to each audience differently, and maybe I don't always do the best job of that. I don't claim to do that, but I just know that they're different. And so I just feel like we do things to cater to our fan base pretty well, and we understand our fan bases in all these different games. And we could do better at maybe creating more content, being more engaging sometimes. But when it comes down to you coming to one of our events in Dallas and you being a fan of our teams, we're going to give you a damn good experience, the best in the world right now.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Like, I think it's one of these things. Like, it's really, because I think there's a lot of surface level like things on Twitter and social media. Everyone just kind of looks at the outset here. They're not realizing, like, obviously there's so much more behind it now. Especially in your case, right? You must go to a lot of meetings, and your days must be taken up some days because you've got a dozen different fires and a dozen different people wanting your attention in different games and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think obviously you had the Dallas Fuel go up a little bit forward? Did having the Dallas Fuel and everything you went through to set that up help you kind of when you transitioned into the COD franchise era? Was it like I've done a lot of these same lines before? Because obviously that would have been a new learning experience then. Was a little bit of a crossover coming into this one since you've already done
that's a good question. I mean, yeah, there were some things that certainly helped, little things here and there, where we learned things by running the Dallas Fuel, and we can take some of that stuff over to what we, especially when we were forming the Empire, what some of our strategy was. Like I feel like, especially like in the branding process, like coming up with the name of the team with the Dallas Fuel, I mean, it just clicked. Like I just knew I wanted the team to be called the Dallas Fuel. I kind of knew where our direction was headed and what our logo was going to look like. It was easy actually. And I learned a little bit through that process. But when it came to the Empire, like we really did go through a couple different team names. We went through all these different logos. And so the branding was different, in the process. But there were some similarities in just the way that we knew how to announce the brand, and get a better impact. And I think we did that in a really nice way. Like the player vignettes, for example, that we did around our players when we launched the Empire brand and announced our roster, like one at a time that week. We had done those player vignettes for our Overwatch team on the Dallas Fuel. We did only like 3 or 4 of them. We didn't do them for every player, but we did them in the middle of the season, I think in season 2 of the Overwatch League. And I knew that was like the way we wanted to announce the Empire. I wanted to tell each player's little mini story in a minute and a half, and let our video content team, who's also some of the best in the world, just telling that story a little bit for each player. And I think we did a phenomenal job there, and hats off to our video content team, our social team.
Hey, if I remember correctly, we ranked you pretty highly on the branding. If I remember correctly, it might have been first.
I think you guys gave us number 1.
Yeah, we ranked you pretty. I was impressed by it. I
still feel like we got that on lockdown, but
I think we, when we
I feel good about it. We love our brand. We love our logo. Like we love wearing it. Like I wear this stuff all the time.
I still love the throwback to Envy in it. I love the fact that that's in there. Like that's just something cool for me.
Shay Butler, our VP of Sales and Marketing, this guy is doing so much work for our organization. If you ever get to meet Shay, and he's really starting to kick it into high gear and learning more about how we can be better with our apparel and do cool things for our fans and make ourselves look good. I mean, it's fun. We're enjoying that side of it.
Here's a separate thing, and it's kind of along the same line of content, right? is you do a lot of team updates and a lot of the stuff yourself personally. Does it ever worry you putting yourself out there like that? Like you're announcing X, Y, and Z. You're in the videos. You're very much a face of it. So any lashback or any criticism, it comes to you first, and you got to deal with that, but also running your business.
Already.
No. I mean, I should.
Well.
Yeah, I don't mind being held accountable and being responsible. I mean, I think that's if you're going to lead, you have to do that. You have to do that. I wouldn't say I've been like the best leader in terms of our content. I think I need to be a little bit more open in terms of putting myself out there even more. I think that's something like Hector just does a fantastic job with, and he gets to reap the rewards of that. I do things a little differently, but if you're going to lead and you're going to be in our position, you have to do that stuff. And if you don't, then what's the reason for anybody to ever care about you? I mean, you have to show that you're going to take responsibility for the decisions that are being made at your organization if you're the founder and CEO of the company. So I'm here. You can always shoot the message or shoot the messenger, but just know that I'll block your ass if you send some really nasty stuff to me. And I'm not going to unblock you ever.
I'm very careful what I say in future podcasts.
No. I'm just joking. I mean, honestly, I try not to do that. Like, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but man, I'm going to take responsibility. I'll be there at the forefront. I'll be on the front lines. And yeah, if you have a problem with our team, or if you want to send us a nice message, I'd love to be the guy that receives either of them, because I'm the guy that's responsible.
That's awesome. That is awesome. All right, we're going to do a section called questions from the chat now, where we go through some rapid fire questions and answer them. While they kind of get going through the Twitch chat now, Stro, I'll ask you this last kind of question from me, which I've just gone completely blank on, which is fantastic at this point in the podcast. It was a good one as well. I've just completely lost it.
Goes on about me doing some.
We'll go straight to questions in the chat. I'll remember it. No, that's it. I've remembered it. Homestand. Your homestand is coming up. I wanted to talk about your event. You've been to, God knows, countless Call of Duty events. You're now getting the throw one, Hastro.
Yeah.
How are you feeling going into that, right? This is your time to put yourself on the stage, essentially.
The only thing I'm worried about at our event, I'm going to start with the only thing that I'm really worried about, is the crowd noise bleeding through to the challengers area. Like, I'm really trying to take care of the challengers players, man. Like, I'm really trying to do more stuff for them this year. I said yesterday, like, I'm really going to try and see if we can do a standalone challengers or just another Call of Duty tournament in our home market where we put up a good chunk of prize money again, and do that standalone from the CDL. I was really wanting to stream it, this our event, but it's just, we can't be streaming challengers up against the CDL broadcast just yet, and hopefully that's something we can change. I'll be definitely lobbying in our ownership group to get that changed. But the only thing I'm worried about is that we got this really sick venue. It's called the Toyota Music Factory. It's only about 3 or 4 years old here in Dallas, maybe only about actually 3 years old, and it's a really cool venue, man. It's like seats 4,500 people, has this massive stage, lots of big video screens already in the place. They have these big garage doors on the back of it that open up to this big grassy hill, so you can open up the whole venue and make it like an amphitheater. We're not going to do that for our event, but we have the challengers guys like on the left side of the arena, but it's inside the arena while the CDL matches are going on. And it's a cool space, but I think the noise is going to be loud, so I'm just going to go ahead and warn all the challengers teams and players out there that it's going to be loud. It'll be a loud venue. And that's the only thing I'm worried about. Outside of that, everybody should have an amazing experience. Challengers is inside the venue, right up front next to the main stage, kind of a little bit off to the side, but right there. And it's going to be that, what I think is kind of what we've grown up, seeing in Call of Duty. Like, kind of, you have your challengers bracket, your open bracket, and then you have your crowd, and you have the main stage, and it should be a good experience for everybody. We're going to have a lot of fun. I mean, we have some cool things from our sponsors happening. And, we just know how to throw a party. So buy a ticket. If you're in Dallas, come out.
Make sure you check that one out. So let's move on to questions from the chat then, because I'm looking forward to that homestand. And
lots of beer, by the way. We have 2 massive bars. Yeah. So
solved it. There it is. They've nailed it. You nailed the homestand. There we go.
It.
Yeah. We have 2 big bars right next to right in front of the main stage, kind of on either side of the main stage. Boom, big bars.
That's definitely the best part of it. All right, question from the chat. Interesting one to begin with from Chaos Knight. What is a great piece of advice you were told during your player career that you've continued to try and instill in your MV organization and the following organizations such as Fuel and Empire as you've built up your teams?
Great piece of advice that I was told during my playing career.
Yeah. Something you carried over from them.
Slow down. That's it. Like, go take it a little bit slower, don't always try to go so fast. And that was from, playing the game. I was like a really aggressive player when I played. I kind of pioneered the MP5 in Call of Duty 4. Like, no pro was using the MP5 in the first few months of that game. Like,
P90
nobody was. It was everybody was rocking the P90, dude. Like, everybody was using the P90.
I remember GBs, and it was exactly the
and
same.
I was MP5 from day one, and like everybody switched over to the MP5 eventually. So, but I was just always aggressive, like in your face, trying to play very fast paced Call of Duty. And as a player, I had to learn. I think eventually just I needed to slow down a little bit, and then I kind of peaked in 2009, 2010, and then kind of fell off after that. But I think I retired in Columbus 2011. But yeah, I mean, nowadays it's also just slow down. Like take a breather and look at what you're doing, and think about what you're doing, and make plans and work on strategy. And I'm starting to learn a little bit more about how to put in really formal strategy to the things that I want to do before we go out and do them. And that has led to everyone here being a little bit more organized. And that's not to say we got it figured out. I mean, I still have to slow down even more and make more plans. And so, yeah, that's the best advice I received. Came from my teammates. Slow down.
So, that's good. That's fair.
Apply to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question from Lamb Chop says, first of all, they say hi, but they also say, now that more orgs are...
Hi, Lamb Chop. Love you, brother.
Now that more orgs are bringing in trainers, nutritionists, psychiatrists, etc., what do you see as the next big thing that will hit esports that's already kind of implemented in traditional sports?
Oh, man, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I really think I think we're going to be one of the first with a facility with that we have.
Yeah, you're a step ahead.
And like Nade Shot and 100 Thieves are definitely doing it the right way. Like, I think the team facility is going to be the future. And if, most teams aren't investing into that right now. Like, they just don't have this main hub facility, like office space is what I'm talking about.
Do any of the other franchise teams have one? I don't think they do. Top of my head.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I don't think so.
Minnesota does.
Minnesota, yeah. Okay, you're right.
Yeah, they have a nice one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Minnesota has a facility for their team, but yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, some teams have them right now, and some teams don't. Mm-hmm. I think eventually the norm will be you have to have this to be taken seriously. That your players have to live and train with each other and actually take it seriously. Because I really do think that the teams that are, maybe it's not the facility that does it, but right now, but the teams that are taking this a little bit more serious and are like actually in a live location together, and I don't know, I feel like those teams are just going to benefit more over time and become better, and the teams that aren't are going to look at why they're getting left behind, and facilities are going to be part of that. I think it's just being able to create an environment for your team to 100% be a professional in. You can call yourself a professional gamer all day, but the reality is a lot of these players, even in the CDL now, aren't very professional with their lifestyles. They get their paycheck, they play COD for 14 hours a day, they work with their teammates and try, but outside of that, there's not much else. With a lot of our players that are in our office, they're coming in on a schedule, eating a certain diet, working out, getting rest, focused on their mental health, focused on, getting their minds right, and they're going to perform better, in my opinion, over time. And so,
couldn't agree more.
That's going to be the norm headed forward, I think.
I was just thinking that just sounds. I know Brice is sitting there just like music to my ears. He's just been preaching it all in the off season.
I've been saying it for a long time.
But like on top of that as well, something that Clay touched on when you talked about schedule, etc. It's made so much sense for me, like over the years, and it's always been a question before franchising came in about this. Why do players that play their scrims at 8 o'clock at night? You can't do anything, and it's like it's nice to be able to set it up now And we know that scrims go on at about this time because we've struggled to get guests since the season started.
Yeah.
But
They're playing right now.
Yeah, but it's much easier now for the players to have that set time because we always question like, well, why wouldn't you want to scrim during the day? None of you work. You literally play Call of Duty for a living. You could do this at any time. Much better now to see them have something a bit more implemented, and whoever forced that in that direction, whoever is, including yourself, forcing it in this direction of being a workspace, that's so much more beneficial to the player. I just understand why none of them wanted to have a social life. It's just like, you can do both of these things. But now it's figured out, thankfully.
Yeah, and no, there's still a lot of work to do. I mean, it's not perfect by any means, man. Like,
Better.
what you're seeing now with our organization being in this office is, 12 years of work to get here, just to get to this point. I mean, imagine what we are 12 years from now if we keep pushing the way we are and we make a successful business out of this thing. I mean, the sky's the limit of where this can go and how much better we can be.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just, I'm never settling, for what this is and or what we have now. I always want double, the effectiveness, double the prestige, double the quality, and you got to keep working for it every single day. You got to bring it.
No, it makes sense. That makes sense. It's interesting. And I'm not going to answer all the questions or get to all the questions in the chat because there are an absolute ton of them. I'm just going to pick some of the best ones out. This is a really easy one. Kingdom Soldier asks, are you still nice on the stick, Stro?
I play on the PCs exclusively now.
Wow.
I know.
Not been tempted to jump in with a team?
It's been that way for a while. Clay wanted me to come play GBs with them, which I might need to get. But dude, my hands, the year I retired from playing professional Call of Duty was the year we switched to PlayStation. I don't know if anybody knows that, but realizes that killed Stro, dude. My hands are way too big.
It.
The PlayStation controller is just something I couldn't grasp. No pun intended.
Yeah, I was when we first switched over. Thank God for the impact. That's all I will say.
I mean, I played professionally on an Xbox controller for 5-6 years. Like, I couldn't.
These are significantly bigger.
Yeah, I just couldn't do it. It just didn't work for me. And so when COD made the switch to PlayStation, I pretty much just switched to playing PC games. And I made it all the way up to Supreme pretty early on in CS:GO. I thought I was badass and went and got a Counter-Strike team and won a world championship there and played a lot of when traveling around with them, won a lot of tournaments. And I just kind of stuck to the PC gaming since then. And I grew up kind of PC gaming and console gaming, so it was just kind of natural. And I just picked one. And I don't know, PC gaming is just
it's more accessible. Well, not more accessible, but you can get better games.
Kept me entertained. Yeah. So, but I am nice on the mouse and keyboard.
Nice.
Yeah. Me and Brice can't stop playing Tarkov right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, Clay plays a lot of that game. It's very good.
I've watched streams, but I haven't been able to play. I just haven't had the time to play too many games. I'm playing Teamfight Tactics when I get the opportunity. Hold on.
Love that game.
Hold on 1 second.
No problem.
I'm on this podcast right now, dude. So yeah, you can just poke your head in front of the camera. See, this is how awesome it is to be in the office with my team. It's just Ian just knocks on my door and wants me to go outside with him to talk. But yeah, I'll come out there in a sec. I think we're almost wrapping up. Yeah.
We won't be long.
Okay.
Funny enough, there's so I was going to do 2 more questions, but I think I can combine this into one because it's kind of a story and it leads on to the man we've just seen. It couldn't be a better segue, honestly. And you've told this story before, but if I remember correctly, I was there and people want to hear about it again. Lightning Pandas for the Win asked about the potential team at AW, right? You've probably been asked this a million times. The Crim come forward.
No, we haven't talked about this really.
So I wanted to kind of get your take on it. I want to hear the story because if I remember correctly, I was at ESWC when a lot of this stuff kicked off and saw some of the behind the scenes stuff. And I don't know if it was ever been fully told from your point of view and what happened, but it was genuinely crazy from what I saw anyway.
Yeah, that was nuts. That was nuts, man. Basically what happened was I was way too nice to JCap. I was just way too nice to him and way too loyal to him. And, I can't say too loyal. I don't think there's such a thing. I love loyal people. But JCap was so hurt from that and felt like I was turning his back or turning my back on him hardcore, and I went that route with JCap and I think Nameless at the time, and like we were gonna make that roster. I think it was Formal, Crim. Who was on that team? It was Formal, Crim, Damon, and who else was it? I can't remember.
I want to say I feel like Aches was in the talks there, but I can't remember if that was true.
No, it wasn't Aches. Man, I can't remember how that. It was maybe somebody else that was on our team currently. I can't remember.
Oh,
who
yeah,
it was.
Who was on your team? Oh,
it wasn't
I remember,
Jay, was it? No.
Who?
Study. It wasn't. No.
It was a crazy time because I remember it was all kicking off. It kicked off at ESWC. Some of it.
A lot of the chat saying Merc.
It was Merc.
Yeah,
it was Merc. It was absolutely Merc. So that team would have ended up being Crim, Formal, Merc, and Karma, and yeah, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it to Cap because he was just so pissed off and hurt over it, and at the time was just going to go nuclear, and I just like called that off. And sure enough, like Hector came in and dropped his team and made that team, and the rest is history. But it is what it is, man. Like, looking back, hindsight's 2020. I stayed loyal to the players that weren't the ones that wanted to make a drastic change, and yeah, it was the wrong decision in terms of being competitive, probably. But at the end of the day, man, I can't say that I haven't been super loyal to people. So
no, that's fair.
You can't call me out for that. I've been super loyal to our players this whole time and taking care of them. And honestly, man, my mantra has always been like, my mentality has always been like, I'm not the one that makes the team changes, dude. Like, that's the way it has been in Call of Duty, or I hadn't been, and it was that way in Counter-Strike too. Like, I would always listen to our players and have to pick a side, right? Nowadays, that has completely changed. Like, players do not get that opportunity as much now. I also listen to them and we'll talk to them, but I learned from that, right? Like, that was just one thing, one area where I learned from it, and I wouldn't say I've made the mistake of doing that still, but I'm just more conscious about it. And you're never going to always make the right decision. Like, you're always going to make some decisions that don't go your way. But I definitely learned from it, and we've learned since then on other things. But that's what happened there. I mean, I went with the guys that were kind of being loyal to us.
Yeah.
Instead of the guys that were wanting to threaten to like leave or make a change.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And this kind of rolls into Crim, right? And someone asked about it, how was that first phone call with Crim, or with Crim first coming onto the scene or coming under your radar? Like, because that, in your mind, it must have been like, that is a very, well, first of all, the winningest player of all time, as he's commonly called, but something of a very famous face in the scene. And how did that all occur then? Did he ring you? Did you ring him? How did you first find out about Crim being free?
Coming into the CDL?
Yeah, coming into the CDL.
Man, I don't know if I should talk about all this. Hector called me. Yeah, Hector called me and was just like, dude, look, he's like, this is happening. Like, I don't, Hector was all like, Hector's just a great owner, dude. Like, he's also he's a fairly loyal person. I mean, you can't say he hasn't been. I mean, they've had some tough years too, where like they could have made some pretty drastic changes, but he managed to keep the team together. He called me and was just like, yeah, this is happening. Like, and I hate it. He was just like, I hate it. This is the worst. Like, I can't believe this is happening, but would you want Ian, And I was immediately just like, hell yeah. Like, yeah, of course. Like, and yeah, that's how it happened. Hopefully he's okay with me talking about that. But like, that's, I mean, we're at the end of the day, we have that major rivalry with each other, and like, it is what it is, but we're still really good friends, and I still consider him like a brother to me. I would trust Hector with my life, like, for real. There are barely any people out there that I could say that about, but he's one person that if my life was on the line, like, I know he would try and save me, and like, there probably aren't many people out there like that. And he's like a brother, but he called because we care about our players,
Yeah.
Like, dude, for Hector and I, we came from nothing, dude. Like, we both had humble beginnings, so we still care about each other. We want to take care of our players. We want to make sure that the players we really care about are getting taken care of wherever they go. and that's the way it's always going to be. So that's how it happened. I mean, he called me and just said, "Hey, would you be interested in Ian?" And I was like, "Hell yes!" And the next day, Ian and I were already making plans.
Also, I can respect that, man. I can respect that. Like I say, I was very curious to see, from an org's perspective, like when a player of that caliber, that history, that that presence kind of comes into the scene, and I want to I was curious how it happened, but that's cool. Kind of cool to see, Hex making sure,
Dude, we've been on the receiving end of Crim 6 for like years, bro. Like, I mean, the 32 championships that he's won, like. How many of those where he had to beat Envy to win those, not just in the grand final, but just in the tournament, like almost all, it's like we've had to endure playing against the guy. And like I said earlier, he's the Terminator, dude, of Call of Duty. I don't care what anybody says. Like, there have been great performances by some players. Like, no, it's hard to say who the best player all time is, but I'll tell you, if Crim6 wasn't on our team, I would still tell you he's the player I'm scared of the most, because he just knows how to turn it up and get the W, and he's proven that more than anybody.
And I think that is maybe a point of like how everyone's like saying, "Oh well, Chicago beat you 3 times already this season." They've got more to lose in these next matchups as they come along. I feel as time goes on, you guys have only got time to grow, and I feel as if for you guys, when the win comes, it's only going to be a lot sweeter than maybe the first 3 that they've had.
Yeah, it's going to feel good, man. Like, we're working really hard for it. Like, I promise you guys that we want it bad. And like, yes, you can't already tell, like, we want it bad. Like, we're ready to go and trying to win, and we're going to work really hard. If we don't win, it's not going to be because we didn't work hard for it. It's going to be because we just got beat. Like, we're just gonna get beat, and we'll see as time goes on whether that's the case or not. So
that's fair enough. Well, that's awesome. All right. Well, what I'll do now is thank you very much, Hastr0 for coming on. I know it's you're a very busy man, and obviously we take up a good amount of time, but we genuinely do appreciate it. We've been talking about getting teams onto the podcast. We want to see what's going on under the hood, and you couldn't have been better about it. We got emails back from you and stuff, so I'm so happy you kind of made it on. You brought Clay on with you. I super kind of appreciate that, like, genuinely. Just to make the time.
Let's do it more, man. I listen to you guys and I drive 40 minutes to my office and 40 minutes back home every day. I live not near uptown Dallas. Let's just put it that way. And I'm a country boy, man. So I need a little bit of land and be out in the middle of nowhere. And so I listen to you guys on my car rides. I wish I could listen to you guys more than one time per week. So have me on the show again soon, and you guys need to do this more.
100%.
Twice a week. Twice a week. He's told us,
yeah. Do it twice a week. Man, you guys should be covering. You guys should be doing Monday and like Thursday.
We do.
Do a wrap up and then an entry show.
The time that we do it scrims all the time, so we need to maybe move the time back a little bit potentially, because it's becoming quite difficult. It's like we even try to get access to the scrim schedule so we know when people are scrimming or not. But yeah, it's difficult. But yeah, if we could do it every day, I'm sure Brice would hate nothing more. But
hey, I like talking Call of Duty.
You're hanging out with me more than anything, I was thinking. But
all right, so
Brice, you actually do love talking about Call of Duty.
I love talking about Call. I can't stop myself.
Right. No offense, Tunn, but he's way more excited about Call of Duty, talking about Call of Duty than you are sometimes.
I'm just chill. I'm here to.
You're chill. But Brice, you can just tell Brice has this extra little bit of love for Call of Duty in his history, and that's why I love both of you, because you're both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Somebody does.
yeah. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the bit where you give your last statement. Anything else you want to just kind of say and get out, Stro, to the people watching and the people watching the VODs?
Everybody go buy some Jack in the Box for lunch today. Make sure you have all your Corsair peripherals and gear. No, I'm not gonna do that. Jack Link's beef jerky is fantastic for the people who love to eat beef jerky. I thanks to all the Call of Duty fans that tune in. I know there were a couple hundred people in the chat at one point. Much love to all of you, even if you're Huntsman fans. Keep enjoying Call of Duty. Have fun with the game. This is one thing I'll say I've actually wanted to talk to the community about. When we invest this money into like a CDL franchise, I've said it kind of before and tried to get the point across on my Twitter feed, but this isn't about this year, dude. Like the investment isn't about this year. It's about the next year and the next year. It just keeps going on and on and on, man. We bought this team so that we could, I can die, an owner of a Call of Duty League team when I'm hopefully in my 80s, and we build this thing to make it so much bigger. So the game and its faults and the mechanics and all that stuff that maybe some of the stuff you're not happy about, I'm going to be there to help fix it, right? Like to make sure it's good for COD Esports. The next games that are coming out, I can tell you that the dev teams at Activision Blizzard do give a shit, and the future games are going to be better, Call of Duty games. And the experiences that we provide to people who buy a ticket to come to our events, they're going to get better. Like everything's going to get better. And I think the Call of Duty League is the shit. And I'm having a really fun time with it. And hopefully you guys are too. And just know that it's going to keep getting better. It can only get better. So that's all I want to say.
That's a good message. I think it's a very good message to kind of end it on.
I think a lot of people need to hear that.
Yeah.
In fairness,
nobody ever says it, but it's like just the reality. It's going to get better. Everything's going to keep getting better, and not that it's not good now. Like I think it's a pretty good start. I really enjoyed watching the event this past weekend just because the games were lit, and we're going to keep having those good games.
Awesome. Tunn, any last thing from you?
Nothing in particular, no. We are going to be up on YouTube and Spotify as per usual.
Should be like 2 hours.
Nothing else to say. Thank you very much to Hastr0 and Clay for coming on, and we'll get this one up as soon as possible.
Awesome. All right. Well, once again, thank you, Hastr0. Thank you, obviously.
Thank you, guys.
Getting Clays to come on, and make sure you're following at Spitfire Podcast, and make sure we put some comments in the YouTube. There's a lot this week. I didn't get a chance to reply to them all, but we do appreciate it. We'll keep bringing you these shows as often as we can. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.